Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Connect webinar on tax and finance. My name is Stephanie Kortleven, and I will be your host during this webinar. On behalf of the team and the speakers, I would like to thank you all for joining us. And we're going to move on to our first announcements. If the slide moves. There we go. This webinar will be recorded and a video of the webinar will be shared on our website for a limited period of time. So if you want to watch the playback online because there's something that you want to listen to again, then you can do so. We will send it to you by email, the link to the video. We've set all your microphones to mute. This is to ensure a smooth running of the webinar. If your microphone is currently not set to mute for whatever reason, please do so before we move on so we can make sure we hear all of our speakers properly. If any URLs or links are mentioned during this webinar, we will share that in the chat window. So make sure to keep an eye on the chat window as well. Questions can be asked throughout the webinar. You can use the Q&A function for that in your Zoom control bar. We will answer all of your questions after each presentation. And if there's time, there will be a general Q&A at the end of the presentations. The only presentation that will not have a Q&A is the one that I'll be doing on behalf of our colleagues from the Municipal Tax Department. That's because they're the experts on the municipal taxes. So if you have a very in-depth question, it's best to ask it to them directly. So we'll share our email address at the end of the presentation, and we'll make sure it's forwarded to our colleagues from the Municipal Tax Department. For optimal view settings, this is up to you. It's obviously not mandatory, but if you want to have the PowerPoint presentation on your left or on the left side of the screen, and you would like to see the speaker on the right side of the screen, go to the top of your screen to view options and then select side-by-side mode. And then tonight's speakers, we have three, well, excluding myself, 3 speakers lined up for you tonight. We have Patricia Van Damme, Tax Compliance Manager at Limes International, Boy Mulder, Managing Director at the Taxpayers, and last we have Deborah Valentine, Executive Director at Access. And then we get to tonight's program. We'll start with Patricia. She'll give a brief overview of the Dutch tax system, the social security system, and possible allowances. I will talk about municipal taxes and regional taxes. Boy Mulder will tell you what to do with your taxes when moving to or leaving the Netherlands halfway through the taxable year, and he'll go into the M form in more detail. Deborah Valentine will tell you more about the cost of living in the Netherlands, utilities, and insurances. Then the Q&A if we have time, and that will be the end of the webinar. Okay. So before I hand you over to Patricia, I'll tell you a little bit about the Hake International Center. For those of you who are not yet that familiar with our services, we are an international point of contact, or a point of contact for internationals in the Hague region. And we want to give internationals the best possible landing here by supporting them with formalities. That would be the municipal registration that will get you the BSN, and the final part of the immigration process, so the handing out of a residence permit. In addition to all the information that we provide, the information that we do provide is always in English. So whether it's on our website, information in the newsletter, updates on our social media, or if you contact us directly by email or by phone, everything will be in English. We also regularly organize events like tonight's event, which is a Connect event. Connect events are organized each month and always on a specific topic. And we do this in collaboration with our partners. They're the experts in their field, and we ask them to share their expertise with you. So tonight it's tax and finance. Next month it will be education and childcare, followed by housing, and so on. Excuse me. We also have a Welcome to the Hague event, which is a quarterly event. This is aimed at newcomers, but it's also, of course, for people who've been here for a longer period of time. You'll learn more about the Netherlands, the Hague region, the Hague more specifically. You'll learn about the Dutch and the intercultural differences. So it's definitely a very interesting event to attend. You can also come to us for a recommendation for service providers. So the partners I just mentioned, whom we collaborate with in organizing these events, these service providers we call partners. We have a partnership agreement with them because we trust them in assisting our clients. They have a lot of experience. Like I said, they're experts in their field. They provide their services in English. and they have years of experience. So if you're looking for, in this case, perhaps a tax consultant, or you're looking for business support, an education specialist, a real estate agent, you can come to us for a recommendation and we can help you further. More information about what we can do for you, you can find on our website, thehakeinternationalcenter.nl. And also for coronavirus measures, for updates, if you've lost track and there's been another press conference, you can check the updates on our website, thehakeinternationalcenter.nl/coronavirus. You can also stay updated on the coronavirus measures via our Facebook and Twitter. That was this one. There we go. Then I'd like to introduce our first speaker for today, Patricia Van Damme from Allowance International. Patricia has over 20 years of experience with the tax affairs of employees in cross-border situations. She's worked at one of the Big Four and is currently working at Allowance International. Patricia is also founder of Dutch Tax Returns, an online tax service provider for foreign nationals. Patricia, over to you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Yes, I was already introduced, so that's easy. I don't have a lot of time to tell you give you some insights about the Dutch personal income tax system. So we go through it rather quickly, but of course there are some questions you can ask afterwards. The things I want to go through is first things to know, then the boxes of income, the tax credits you may be entitled to, the Dutch Social Security system, and possible allowances. First, next slide, please. Things to know about the Dutch personal income tax system. The tax year in the Netherlands is the calendar year, so that's easy. The filing deadline is in principle May 1st, after end of the tax year. In the Netherlands, you do not always have a filing obligation. There is a filing obligation in the Netherlands when you received an invitation letter from the Dutch tax authorities. That's the famous blue envelope. And if you owe taxes to the Dutch tax authorities of more than 47 euros. Normally, when you owe tax, the Dutch tax authorities will also send you an invitation. But when you're entitled to a refund, be aware that in most situations, the Dutch tax authorities, or in a lot of situations, will not invite you to file. So there may be an interest to file. When you did not receive an invitation and when there's no liability, there's also no filing requirements. So that's good to know. And when you are in full year employment, so from January 1st to December 31st, you do not have any deductions or any additional income, then in most situations, there's a nil liability because payroll tax equals income tax. So there's no interest to file a tax return. Next slide, please. Thank you. In the Netherlands, we have 3 boxes of income we know, and they're named box 1, box 2, and box 3, so that's easy. As a resident taxpayer of the Netherlands, and residency is actually determined based on facts and circumstances. So for example, where is your vital center of interest? Where do you have a home available? Where does your family live? And when you reside in the Netherlands, you are in principle taxable on your worldwide income. And taxes are levied based on the box system. Box 1, that's income from work and home. So generally employment income, income from self-employed. In case you have a principal residence in the Netherlands, that's also taxed in box 1. There's a deemed income recognized on the house, but the mortgage interest payments you have on a mortgage that's connected to the house are deductible. And the deductions is set, for example, the mortgage interest payments, they're all taken into account in box 1. Other possible deductions may be when you have alimony payments to a former spouse, or when you have educational expenses. Those are all regarded as deductions in box 1. Then we have box 2 income, and that's income from substantial interest. So in case you have own the shares of a company, 5% or more of the shares of a company, that's taxed in box 2 as income from substantial interest. The dividends received from the substantial interest or any capital gains, they're all taxed at a flat rate of 26.25%. And then we have the box 3 income, that's income from savings and investments. And it's worldwide income from savings and investments. So not only bank accounts in the Netherlands, but also bank accounts in foreign countries, or for example, real estate located in foreign countries. That's part of your net wealth. We actually have a strange system on how to tax income from savings and investments, because not the actual interest received or rental income received or dividends received are taxed, but a deemed return is recognized depending on your total net wealth. And the total net wealth, that's all your assets, worldwide assets, minus any debts, and the value on January 1st of the tax year. So for the tax returns of 2020, the reference date is January 1st, 2020. And the total, they recognize deemed return on that, and that's taxed at a flat rate of 30%. Next slide, please. Then, as a non-resident taxpayer, you may also be taxable on Dutch source on income in the Netherlands, but that's only on Dutch sources of income. And it's based on the same system as how resident taxpayers are taxed. It's also the box system, box 1, box 2, and box 3. The difference is only that for income from work and home, only employment income related to your Dutch employment, your Dutch working days, is taxable in the Netherlands. Income from substantial interest is only taxable on a Dutch resident company. So in case you owe 5% or more of the shares in a Dutch company. Income from savings and investments, also only your Dutch income from savings and investments. However, in this situation, bank accounts are not taxable, but only real estate located in the Netherlands is taxable as income from savings and investments as a non-resident taxpayer. Next slide, please. Then the tax rate. In the Netherlands, we have, as of 2020, we have actually 3 tax brackets. Before we had 4 tax brackets. As you can see, is the first tax bracket is not only includes a tax, but also social security premiums. So the first tax bracket includes a combined rate of tax and social security. The tax is only 9.7% in box 1, but social security premiums are 27.65%. Box 2, and you can also see the income. So from an income up to 34,712 euros, you're taxed in box 1. Tax rate and social security tax are due. Box 2 runs from 34,713 up to 68,507. The tax rate is 37.35%, only tax. And the income above 68,508, that's taxed at 49.5%. And it accumulates. So the first 34,000 will be taxed at the 37.35%. The income between 3,4 and 6,8 is taxed at 37.35%, and everything above at 49.5%. So it's a progressive tax system. Yes, please. Then next slide, please. Yeah. The tax rate in box 3. This is what I told about. We rather have a strange box 3 income tax levy. They take a look at your total assets minus your debts and the value of that on January 1st, 2020. There's a tax-free capital of 30,846 euros per taxpayer. And on the remaining amount, the first income up to, or value up to 72,798 euros, 67% of that amount is a deemed income recognized of 0.07%, and on the 33%, the deemed income is 5.28%. For the next 72,798 euros up to a bit more than 1 million, 21% of that amount is now a deemed income recognized of 0.07%. So you can see the higher your value of your total assets is, the more deemed income is recognized in box 3. I have an example to explain this a little bit more. Maybe you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Oh, there's no, oh, sorry. I thought there was an example, but I know I skipped it because of the time we have. But it's a rather complicated system on how to calculate box 3 income. Then in the Netherlands, we have, when the tax is recognized, so you know how much tax you pay, there are also some tax credits. The first tax credit, that's the general tax credits. That's applicable to all resident taxpayers. It runs from 2,711 euros to 0. And it depends on age and income level. The higher the income, the lower the credits. And if the income is above, and I see here a slight mistake, a small mistake in the slides, it's 68,507. If your income is above 68,507 euros, then it's 0, and everything below, it will be reduced by a certain percentage. Then we have the general tax credit for the non-working partner or the partner with only low income. And the tax credit depends on age. If you are born before January 1962, the maximum tax credit for the non-working partner is 2,711 euros. And if you're born after, it's only 543 euros. And one of the requirements is that you should be residing in the Netherlands for more than 6 months together with your fiscal partner who pays tax in the Netherlands to be eligible for the general tax credit of the non-working partner. Then we also have an employment tax credit, and that's for employees or self-employed persons. And it runs from 3,819 euros to 0. Here's also the same system. The higher the income, the lower the credit. So if you earn more than 98,604 euros, then it's 0. Next slide, please. And there are also some other tax credits. The most important one is the income-related combination tax credit. And that's when both partners, so you and the fiscal partners, are working, and you have a child below the age of 12, then you are entitled to an extra credit, and the maximum is 2,881 euros. Next slide, please. Then the Dutch Social Security system. Generally, all people who are living and working in the Netherlands are required to pay into the Dutch Social Security system. In the Netherlands, we have the Volksverzekering, the National Social Insurance contributions. That's the part that's included in the tax rates, so the 27.65% I just talked about. And then we also have the werknemersverzekeringen. It's on the next slide. And that's incorporated in the payroll administration, so that you pay the Unemployment Insurance Act, the employer pays the amount. Next slide, please. Then also we have some allowances in the Netherlands, and that's a financial contribution from the government for people with a low income. We have the rent allowance, healthcare allowance, child-related budget, and for working parents, and that's the most important, the childcare allowance. You can apply for the allowances via the website of the Dutch tax authorities, Mijn Toeslagen. Next slide, please. Okay. Are there any questions, I think?
Thank you, Patricia. Well, there was a lot coming in.
Yeah, I noticed.
You noticed. So I'll just go through the ones that we received. Maybe you've already touched upon certain things, but maybe good to repeat regardless. Let's see. What if there, oh, keeps jumping up. What if there's a box 3 tax to pay around 150 euros and I don't file the tax return? I do not work and only have savings. Do I still need to file? What are the consequences of not doing it?
Every resident taxpayer of the Netherlands is entitled to some tax credits. So I don't know if the 150 euros is before or after the tax credits, but everybody is entitled to the tax credits. So in case the tax credits are higher than the amount of box 3 income you have to pay, then you do not have to file.
Okay, thank you. Here's one. My partner's employment was reduced to 50% from 100%, and she received unemployment benefits for the other 50% for 2 years. For both years, we had to pay huge amounts of additional taxes. We assume this has to do with the fact that unemployment benefits are initially taxed, like salary, or not high enough. Is that correct?
Yeah, normally unemployment benefits, if you receive them from the Netherlands, they normally also withhold tax on it. However, if you when you ask companies to pay out something, you have to fill in a declaration, and you can ask them to take into account the tax credits. And when in both in employment and for the unemployment benefit, in both situations, the tax credits are taken into account, then normally you have to pay additional tax. And the other thing is that because it's from 2 employers or 2 companies, both start at the lowest tax rates. So it may be the situation that you become in a higher tax bracket, and then you indeed have to pay additional tax. So that may be possible.
Okay. Let's see. How do the authorities decide who gets an invitation blue letter and who does not? And what happens if you've received a blue letter and do not file a tax return?
Yeah, if you received a blue letter and you do not file, you get penalties. And first, if you have to pay, there's also interest due. And if you do not file after reminders, there's also a late filing penalty.
Okay. Let's see. And what do you mean by tax-free capital? 30,846 euros?
Yeah, if you have your total savings and investments, so suppose you have a total savings and investments of 100,000 euros, you may take off the tax-free amount, so the 30,846 euros, and the 100,000 minus the 30,000, that's the taxable, the basis for calculating the box 3 tax.
Okay, let's see. If we transfer our savings from home country to the Netherlands, if I've paid the tax on it, would it be taxed? No 30% ruling.
If I'm on 30% ruling, you said?
Well, that's what it ends with.
Yeah, there is, and that's for expats or people who benefit from the 30% ruling. You may opt to be treated as a partial non-resident taxpayer, and as long as you benefit from the 30% ruling, and as a partial non-resident taxpayer, you're still taxable on your worldwide income for box 1 income, but you're taxable as a non-resident for box 2 and box 3 income. Generally meaning that you only pay tax for those 2 boxes on Dutch sources of income, such as real estate located in the Netherlands, and you're not taxable on any bank accounts, savings, investments, whatever. So then you do not have to pay tax on it. not all bank accounts in the Netherlands, but also not from other bank accounts. If you do not benefit the 30% ruling, and it doesn't matter whether or not you transfer your savings to the Netherlands or not, you're taxable on your worldwide income. So in foreign countries and in the Netherlands, and based on the tax treaties, it's determined which country has the right to levy tax. And normally on bank accounts, it's the country where you reside. But for real estate, it's the country where the real estate is located.
Okay, very good. There were more questions coming in, but because of the time, we're going to move on to the next presentation. Maybe it'll come back in a general Q&A, but thank you, Patricia.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, there we go. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so I told you already, on behalf of our colleagues from the Municipal Tax Department, I'll tell you a little bit more about municipal and regional taxes. So this is the tax assessment, the municipal tax assessment that you're supposed to receive in February. On the right side of the slide, you see what it's supposed to look like. So you've either already received it or it should come in shortly. On the other side, you see the charges that you can find on this assessment, and we'll just, I'll run through each of them briefly, just to explain what that is. We'll start with the property value, or as we call it, the WOZ-waarde. And this is the amount your residential property could fetch at a certain date, and that is the reference value date. It determines how much you have to pay in property tax. And the value is determined by the municipality based on a variety of things. For example, the characteristics of the property. So the location, the surface area, the state of repair. But they also look at the sales data around the reference value date. So there's a lot of other things that they look at, but just to give you an idea. Now, this is for homeowners. If you don't own a home, but you rent, you may also want to know more about whether a property has decreased in value, for example, because that could have consequences for your rent price. If you want to check whether that has happened, if you want to get an estimate on your rent, you can do the rent check, and we will share that in the chat window. We'll share the link with you in a moment. We'll go on to, yes, there you go. We'll go on to the property tax. So the Municipal Tax Department levies property tax on all real estate in The Hague, and only the person who's the owner of the property on January 1st has to pay the property tax. The tax department calculates the property tax by taking a small percentage of the property value, which I just mentioned. And for 2021, this is a percentage of 0.0516%. This is for owners of a residential property. Now, if you're selling your property, you will have to pay the entire tax assessment. So you'll have to pay it in full. If you purchase the property during the course of the year, you will only get the assessment for the property tax in the following year. Usually the difference is still charged to the new owner through the transfer of ownership, but just so you are aware of that. Then dog tax. If you have a dog, you need to register your dog. For example, you get one now, you need to register with the municipality within 6 weeks. If you fail to do so, you will get fined. Regardless of the size of the dog, you will have to pay taxes for all the dogs that you own, even for the ones that don't go outside, never come outside. Apparently that's a question the municipality has received more than once, so thought it was worth mentioning. If you have a guide or service dog, you may request a dog tax exemption. In all other cases, you will have 2 months to pay the full installment. Do you no longer have a dog, or did you move to another municipality? You can apply for a tax refund for the dog tax that you've overpaid. Then there's waste tax. At a minimum of once a week, your household waste will be picked up by the municipal service, and the waste tax covers the collection and processing of household waste. The assessment will be in the name of the user of the property, and is calculated based on the size of your household. So it depends on the number of people registered at your address. To give you an idea, for 2021, for one person, you will pay, and I've rounded everything up, you'll pay 293 for one person, 330 euros for two, and 360 euros for 3 people or more. And the Municipal Tax Department checks the personal records database to check the size of the household. So they'll see how many people are registered at any time, or in this case, the first day of the tax period, which is January 1st. So make sure that if you change address, or if someone moves in or someone moves out of your household, make sure to inform the municipality of that in time. Then we have sewage tax. The houses and buildings in the Netherlands are connected to the main municipal sewage system. And each household can use up to 500 cubic meters of wastewater per year. If you use more than that, you will have to pay the sewage tax for users for every extra 500 cubic meters of wastewater that you use. That's 206 euros. Excuse me. So 206 euros for every extra 500 cubic meters of wastewater that you use. Now, if you own a property, you will have to pay the sewage charge for owners. And in 2021, this is 151 euros per property. So mind you, if you own a property, you pay the sewage tax for owners. And if you also use more than those 500 cubic meters per year, you will also be charged the sewage tax for users. And also here for the sewage tax, are you moving later in the year or you're selling your property, you still pay the assessment in full. And if you buy property during the course of the year, you will receive the sewage tax assessment the following year. So parking tax, we call it parking tax. It's basically everything that's paid for parking in The Hague. So for example, a parking permit for a resident or for visitors, or what you pay at a parking meter. Anyone who lives in The Hague can apply for a parking permit, and it will be linked to the license plate number of your car. And then tourist tax, you're probably all familiar with that from staying in hotels on holidays. If you receive money for an overnight stay from a non-resident of The Hague, you are liable for paying tourist tax. So even if you are a private individual, for example, renting out your place through Airbnb or Vindu to non-residents of The Hague, you're liable for tourist tax. Residents of the municipality of The Hague do not have to pay tourist tax. So if you're registered here at an address with the municipality, you don't have to pay. And then there we go. So the Locale Estimator basically translates as local tax calculator, can be used to calculate your local tax. We'll share the link in the chat right now. The tool will just walk you through all tax types, and it'll ask you certain questions. You can select whatever applies to you, and then eventually it'll calculate your taxes for you. And as you can see on the slide, if you see all the icons on the left there, you see that it goes from the property tax to sewage tax, waste, parking, and dog tax. So just to give you an idea. So now we've discussed the municipal taxes for which you'll receive the assessment in February, but you should have received another assessment in January from the RBG, the Regionale Belastinggroep, also known as the Water Authority tax. I don't think I touched anything. That's very interesting. Just go back one slide. There we go. So the Water Authority has three main tasks, and that's the maintenance of dikes and dams, water level control, and water quality control. So just as an example, the assessment can include 2 or 3 different charges, depending on whether you're a tenant or an owner. You'll see here for a tenant, you have a water treatment charge, which is a standard charge per pollution unit per year. And a pollution unit is the average pollution of one person per year. If you live by yourself, you're registered, you're the only person registered at the address, you'll have 1 pollution unit. If you live with 2 or more people, you will have 3 pollution units. Then you also pay the water system charge for residents, which is a standard amount, a standard charge of household per year. And that's 123.29. So if you live by yourself and you're a tenant, it's the 93.50 plus the 123. Now, if you're a homeowner, you also pay the water treatment charge. So depending on the pollution unit, also the water system charge for residents, so the fixed amount. And in addition to that, you pay for the water system charge for homeowners, which is a percentage of the property value, so the WOZ-waarde of your home. And for 2021, that's a percentage of 0.0198%. Payments for the Water Authority taxes, they're due within 6 weeks of receiving the assessment. You can pay this online, for which you will need a DigiD, and I'll tell you more about the DigiD later. Sorry, one more thing about the Water Authority tax. In case of a mistake, so for example, you're charged for too many pollution units, you can contest the assessment, and you have to do so also within 6 weeks of receiving the assessment. Again, online, and again, by using your DigiD. Now I'll move on to the privileged persons and diplomats, so the privileged status holders. For them, there are partial exemptions in place. For example, on property tax on property owned by the international organization, municipal tax on second homes, dock tax, advertising tax, and tax for installations on public land or water, and a water system charge. So the water system charge for both residents as homeowners are waived, and that then only leaves the water treatment charge of either 1 or 3 pollution units that will still need to be paid. Now I'm thinking for all the privileged status holders present here, you're probably already aware that, well, sometimes you have to really double check the assessment, because in your case, related to the way that you're registered, and this being an automated system, that sometimes it doesn't always work out, and you may get too many people, you may get charged for too many people in a household, for example. So make sure to always double check the assessment and to make sure to contest it. And if you run into any other obstacles, make sure to send us an email, internationalcenter@denhaag.nl. So we've looked at the Water Authority tax and how you can, you have to either pay it within 6 weeks or you can test it within 6 weeks. Now for the municipal taxes, if you disagree with one or more charges, you can contest it also within 6 weeks of receiving the assessment, and you can do this either online via Mijn Den Haag and use your DigiD, or you can do it in writing. And if payment arrangements, most people, I'm saying that, I don't know that, but a lot of people just pay for the assessment at once, so for the full year. If preferred or necessary, you can pay in monthly installments by direct debit. And you can authorize the municipality to deduct the payment for the municipal taxes from your bank account, and this will be deducted around the 25th of each month. Then the DigiD, also known as digital identification. With a DigiD, you can prove your identity online to hundreds of government organizations in order to get access to their services. It's basically a username and a password that is linked to your BSN. And you can take care of a lot of formalities online, as opposed to having to sending something by post or visiting an organization, for example, the town hall in person. So for example, if you want to change address, you can do that online with a DigiD, apply for a parking permit or apply for allowances. And of course, if you want to contest your tax assessment, you can use the DigiD for that. You can apply at digid.nl, and you will need your BSN, date of birth, postal code, and house number, and you need to be registered with the municipality at an address. Now the application itself is quite straightforward. Again, you go to digid.nl. It's only 5 steps. So you start off with filling out your personal information. Then step 2, for security measure, you'll receive a text message as a login authorization. Once authorized, you can choose your username and a password, and you can finish the application. Then within 5 working days, you'll receive an activation letter at your registered address. And then once you've received the letter, you can just follow the instructions to make sure you complete the activation. And as from that moment on, you can use the DigiD. So any government website where you see the DigiD logo, you can log in with your username and password. And I think it's probably clear already, but it's very important that you keep your username and password to yourself. Also in case of identity theft, someone else applying for allowances in your name. So make sure to keep that with you. And as a tip, a lot of people that come in for registration, they initially have a temporary address, then they apply for a DigiD, and then they move to another address with the activation letter being sent to their temp address. And in case you don't have access to that anymore, or someone else does have access to that, you may want to wait if you anticipate a change of address, to do that first, and then apply for your DigiD. Like I said, the questions, no questions for this one. Again, we'll leave that up to the experts here at the municipality. So you can email us. We'll share our email address at the end of the presentation, and we'll make sure that your question gets to our colleagues. Then I would like to introduce our third speaker. That's Boy Mulder from the Tax Savers, and Boy is one of the founders of the Tax Savers. He has extensive experience in the financial services industry and with helping internationals. He can assist you with all questions about Dutch taxes, the M form, and the annual income tax return. Boy, over to you.
Yes, welcome. Today I will explain you a little bit more about this big booklet. This is the so-called M form. This is a tax return you need to complete for your first or last tax return in the Netherlands. Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. Yeah, I will explain you today in general about the M form, what information you need in order to prepare and file a complete M form, and what you can expect after filing your M form. Maybe you already received the M form for the year you entered the Netherlands. Otherwise, there is a good chance that you will receive it within a couple of weeks or months from now. And as you might know, the M form is completely in Dutch and for you only available as a paper version tax return, which means that you have to fill all the 60 pages with the old-fashioned pen. Now, it's a bit weird because it is a special tax return for people who come to the Netherlands during a year. So 8 out of 10 people who need to do an M form is an international who can't read Dutch yet. Now, second point, what information do you need in order to file your M form? Now, the Dutch tax office, the Belastingdienst, wants to know you. They want to know about you, about your migration, about your tax situation. And with the M form, you can provide all the information. The M form is only for the first year. So after year 1, you can prepare and file your tax return online in the system of the tax office. And that's not that difficult anymore. Only the first year is the paper form tax return. Now, what information do you need? First, they want to know you in general. So they want to know your, as you can see on the slide, they want to know your name, BSN number, date of birth, your nationality, the exact immigration date. And keep in mind, this is the date of registration at the municipality. So not the flight date. And they want to know the country where you were living in before coming to the Netherlands. That's the first part of the M form, and after the general part, they want to know more about income. So box 1, box 2, and box 3. Let's start with the box 1, income. In box 1, you need to declare income from your work, but also if you bought a house where you're living in yourself as your main residence. Now, what documents do you need? In order to declare your income, you need, if you are in employment, your annual income statement. In Dutch, that's called the jaaropgave. If you have self-employed income, you need an overview of that income. You need an overview of additional income that's not taxed yet. And maybe you have still some income from abroad. And sometimes, or always you need to declare it, but sometimes it's also taxed in the Netherlands, and then you need to declare it in your M form as well. Now, if you bought a house in the first year, you also need the annual overview of your mortgage, the final notary bill in order to provide all the deductible financing costs, and you need to automatically generate the WZ value of the house you bought, and you need the WZ value of the year before. So if you bought a house, for example, in 2020, you need to declare the value on the 1st of January 2019. Now, after box 1, you need to declare box 2. And indeed, box 2 is only relevant if you have more than 5% of the shares of a company. Because of the time today, I will leave it out today. Because box 3 is a very relevant box for most of you. And I assume a lot of you are benefiting from the 30% ruling. And besides the income benefit of the 30% ruling, there is an additional benefit, because indeed you can ask or opt for a partial non-resident taxpayer status. And that means that you don't need to declare your box 2 and box 3 income. The only thing you need to declare in box 3 is real estate located in the Netherlands where you are not living in yourself. So that basically means that if you're benefiting from the 30% ruling, you can leave out your box 2 and box 3 part in the M form. When you're not benefiting from the 30% ruling, you have to declare all your worldwide savings, investments, any debts, maybe loans. The important thing is that the reference date is the 1st of January of that specific year. So in the M form, of course, you did not live in the Netherlands yet on the 1st of January, but still you need to declare all your savings, investments of the 1st of January of that specific year. Now, in the first year, the M form, that's quite difficult because now when you are living in the Netherlands and you have your money located at the Dutch bank, you receive an annual overview of all your capital on the 1st of the year and on the end of the year. And that makes it pretty easy to file a complete and correct box 3 part in your M form. When you have savings abroad, you have to collect, for example, bank statements in order to provide the correct information on the 1st of January, for example, 2020. At the end of the day, you don't need to pay the box 3 tax, the so-called asset tax, for the whole year, only for the Dutch months of that year. But still, the reference date is the 1st of January of that specific year. Now, then, what will happen if you file a complete correct tax return? Usually, the tax office will process your M form within 3 to 4 months, but it can take up 3 years. Once they are finished, they will send you an assessment. And again, that is a Dutch assessment with the outcome of the M form. Now, the outcome of the M form is usually quite a good one if you are in employment, because in the Netherlands, you pay your income tax on a monthly basis, on your monthly payslip. And that monthly amount of income tax is based on your annual salary. Now, in the first year, you did not work a full year, usually. And that mean that your employer withheld too much income tax, and the M form is the way to get your tax refund related to the income tax you already paid. Now, this was the end of my presentation. Are there any questions for me for now?
Thank you, Boy. I think I have unmuted myself. Very good. No, there's actually quite a few things coming in. Let's see. Let's see, I've paid tax on it in my home country. Would it be taxed in the Netherlands again? If you do not get the invitation to file taxes, is it still recommended for us to do so? Well, I'll just wait for the first one. Is that clear? The first one?
Answer the question.
I've paid tax on it in my home country. It's actually replying to something that was sent before, but I don't see that. Let's see.
I can't hear you that good, Stephanie.
No? Oh, that's not good at all.
No, you're. Yeah. What's the question?
Here, okay, I'll do this one. If you do not get the invitation to file taxes, is it still recommended for us to do so?
Yeah, usually if you are in employment, it's usually a good thing to do your M form, because if you don't do your M form, you will never get your tax refund of the income tax you already paid too much on your monthly payslip. So if you are in employment, usually a good thing to do your M form indeed, yes.
Okay, very good, thanks. Let's see. By February, I received some letters from the Belasting. I'm an employee. Do I have to file from 2019?
No, yeah, if you were not living in the Netherlands in 2019 yet, and you did not have any connection or Dutch income with the Netherlands, you don't need to do it for 2019. If you start living, or the registration date at the municipality was in 2020, your first tax return will be for 2020, and that is something you can do from the 1st of March 2021.
Okay. And okay, so this is approximately, what is the cost of having someone help you with filing a tax return? Approximately.
Yeah. It depends, of course, which tax advisor you uses. With our company, filing an M form starts at 195, including the VAT. But it depends a little bit on the situation, of course, and how difficult your situation is.
Exactly. See, that's something else. For husband, wife, in which cases does it make sense to file separately?
If you have a husband, a wife, if you are married, you are automatically tax partners in the Netherlands. And now when one of you doesn't have any income, but is living for more than 6 months in the Netherlands in the first year, she or he with the one without the income is still entitled to a tax credit. So my advice would be to, if somebody, if you are living for more than 6 months in the Netherlands, for example, 2020, still need to do your tax return because that can give you an additional tax credit. The non-spousal and the non-working spousal credit.
Okay. Let's see, here's someone who says, I've been living here since November 2019 and I've just received an invitation to file tax. I didn't receive the M form. Is that standard?
Normally, if the tax office expect you to do the M form, they will also send you the M form in one go. So maybe it's a good thing to check your registration date at the municipality, because usually that's the reference for the tax office to send you the M form.
Okay. And how do double taxation agreements affect the tax paid on worldwide income if I'm already paying tax in my country of origin?
Now, in general, of course, in the M form from the immigration data, the registration at the municipality, you become a Dutch taxpayer. And from that moment on, you have to declare all your income earned. And then in general, the rule is that not the country where your income is coming from can tax you, but the country where you actually earn the income. So the country where you do the work activities. That's in general the rule. I have to say all the tax agreements are slightly different. So that would be a good question for a tax advisor to do some more research. Because it can depend on your situation.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Boy, for sharing that with us. There's still some other questions coming in, so hopefully at the end we have time to get back to those. But thank you for your input there. Okay, I would like to introduce the last speaker, Deborah Valentine from Access. Deborah has spent 40 years of her life as a global nomad, having lived in 12 countries throughout her life and speaking 5 languages. The Netherlands has been her home for some time now, but the experience of arriving in, traveling, settling, and departing countries continues to influence her life and her work. Deborah, over to you.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. And phew, welcome everybody. I'm going to handle all the soft things this evening. Not all, but a few in any case. I hope you're all managing, making notes. Excuse me, but I do know though that the presentation will be shared, so there'll be lots to follow up on. A little bit about Access. I have to speak a little slower, sorry. Yes, we are a nonprofit organization. We've been around for 35 years, successfully helping people to settle in the Netherlands. We do this through FAQs on our website, via our help desk, referrals to mental health, through our counseling network, and so much more. And our magazine, of course, which is also published a few times a year. Next slide, please. And yeah, all of these questions have given us a wealth of experience, and it is the experience not just of myself, but of the volunteers we work with, who allow us to do this, that I've extrapolated a few tips and tricks. Next slide, please. So a few things that I will cover: transport, insurances, not healthcare, in case anybody has question marks in their head about that, groceries, utilities, and a few things to keep in mind. Next slide, please. Phew, now, so where are we going? Next slide, please. As I said, I will be talking about transport. So OZB, for some who have been here for a little while, I'm sure this is very familiar to you. The public transport system has centralized their cards. So we can have one document that allows us to travel on all public transport in the Netherlands, which is very different to what it used to be a few years ago. There are a few things to keep in mind. The blue card, the OZB blue chip card, the blue one, is anonymous. So you can just buy these cards. I believe the current charge is €7.50 per card. They can be used by anybody. You upload the value onto the card as and when you need in various checkup points. What is important to remember are 2 things. One, if you want to use this on the train, then you need to have a minimum of 20 euros on the card before you check in, regardless of where you're going. Another thing that's important to remember is if these cards have an expiry date, sadly, but they do. If you have money on that card and it has expired, it is possible to claim that back. And there are details of doing so on the OV chip card website, which has got a lot of very complete information in English. The yellow OV chip card is personalized. So that will be linked to your bank account. That will require you to fill in a lot more personal data about yourself, including submitting a picture. It allows you, therefore, because you are linked to your bank account, to subscribe to several discount options that you may want for your travel time. And there are several different options available, again, detailed on the website, which allows you to take advantage of cheaper traveling times, certain hours, or if you're traveling with a family or with friends. So the personalized yellow card does give you, generally speaking, a lot more flexibility in deciding how you spend your public transport money. It is, of course, also possible to get regular tickets, a day ticket on a bus for yourself, or if you have visitors visiting, it is possible to buy tickets. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that very, very few, and I think I'm fairly sure I can say that it is not possible to pay on any public transport with cash. So if you buy your tickets, then you have to use a card to purchase the tickets. And then there are the day validity or a couple of days validity. I quite often have several blue cards. If I have visitors, I just hand them the blue card. And if they're traveling around, then they or I will upload it, and it gives them that flexibility to travel. Next slide, please. So insurances. Insurances, it's a big world. And of course, the health-specific insurances will be found on the THIC website, and I'm sure there will be a health-related webinar Connect event coming up soon where that will be explained, so I won't go into that today. Some insurances which might be interesting to you, however, as residents, house owners, renting or purchasing houses in the Netherlands, these are some of the few general ones that we discuss. So, aansprakelijkheidsverzekering. It's a big word, lots of letters. It's basically third-party liability insurance. If your children play ball and it goes through the neighbor's window, that would be covered by that. It's not an expensive, excuse me, insurance to have. There used to be a time, and I wasn't able to confirm this before the presentation, unfortunately, where it was required that everybody had this insurance in the Netherlands. If you're on your own, perhaps maybe less interesting, but I think if you have children and you're traveling and they're outside playing and they throw balls, it might be worth looking into. Rechtsbijstandsverzekering, legal aid insurance, is something that some people have or comes with other programs that you or packages that you might be signed up to. And it's basically legal aid insurance to cover legal costs that might arise from disputes with your landlord, neighbors, municipality. Again, all insurances depend so much on each individual's situation. So it's something to look into depending on your situation, and talking to people who sell these insurances to find out which is best for you. I have 3 minutes left. I'm going to go very, very quickly. Rental guarantee insurance for people who are renting properties. Property insurance, inboedelverzekering, certainly is recommended if you own a home, to ensure that the property that you own is covered. I'm going to rush through this, but these words are all in this presentation so that you can check them later. Next, please. Groceries. Now, there are lots of grocery stores in this country, and people will have different opinions about which one is more economical and which is not. I think part of the economy depends on how close it is to you and how much time you have. What is good to know is that for grocery stores, if you become a member of them, often there are discounts available linked to your membership, or you will find out about discounts. So that's something to consider. When it comes to outdoor markets, there are several outdoor markets in The Hague. There is an overview on the website, on the city's website of the markets. Of course, the outdoor market in The Hague is which is in the Schilderswijk, is Europe known for being very large. I have been told that if you go shopping at the end of the day on their market days, that you might get some discounts as people are trying to rid themselves of their wares. Electricity, again, many providers for this. One thing that we notice that a lot of internationals are not aware of is that there are actually two electricity formats, the high and the regular and the low end. The low end is basically to run your dishwasher, your washing machine after 11 p.m. and before 7 a.m. or on weekends. So you use the discounted electricity rate versus the full energy rate. In terms of kitchens, something to keep in mind, very briefly, is that the City of The Hague does have the intention to go off the gas grid in the next few years. So if renovations are being planned, just keep that in mind. Contracts for all of these things are, generally speaking, I'm sorry to be rushing through, but I've been told I've got less time. Contracts are for 12 months. If you want to change, it is a good idea to keep a month. You have a month's cancellation fee, generally speaking. So before you sign up a new one, make sure that you've also canceled your old one. Otherwise, you'll be paying twice. Please, we can't stress this enough from Access to be aware of scams and frauds that are taking place at the moment. Especially during this COVID period, we've seen an increase in these quite a few times of people getting text messages on their phone from the bank, check this, check that. Banks will not text you a message. They will not. They will have either through DigiD, or they will have their own private network where they send you a message. So please be aware and double check. If you're unsure, ignore the message, go onto the website and see. They should be sure that what you are getting is legitimate. Next slide. And I'm sorry to be rushing through all this. Utilities. There are, obviously 100 providers out there, and you have to see what your uses and what your interests are. I have 2 teenage children, so I needed fast internet, but if you're living on your own, you probably have different needs. So there are lots of different providers who will compare and give you options to compare what you need. Not all regions of The Hague have fiberglass at the moment. So it is important to be aware of that what kind of connection do you have? Energy, water, gas, the same thing. And the 1 month rule is the one that's more important. Mobile phones, many people get a mobile phone when they first arrive. Our advice is when you're asking for that, just to inquire and make sure that when you've committed to a contract with them, that you can keep that number and you're not then forced to change your phone number. Read the fine print in all of your contracts. Next slide, please. Flying right along. Yeah, fines. The Dutch like fines. They like fines because they have rules. They have rules and regulations and things which they expect people to do. And if you don't do it, you'll get a fine. The good news is, though, there's always space for objecting to the fines. Our advice is pay the fine first and then object, because quite often the payment frames for it are such that if you don't pay on time, you will end up paying an addition to that. But you can always claim back if there has been a mistake. So we advise that you pay the fine and then follow through the objection procedures in time so that you can get those fines back. Those are my tips and tricks. I hope I stuck to my 10 minutes. And for whatever questions I'm not able to answer, the Access Help Desk team is there to help you as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah. Thanks so much. Sorry for rushing you.
Not a problem.
I believe we do have time for questions in that. I'm just going to ask. A few questions came in, several on insurances, where to buy them. Someone sold bought or got them at the bank, but what about others?
Yeah, no, you can buy insurances from several authorized insurance sellers. The banks are some, but there are some independent insurance providers, brokers, who will sell you different kinds of insurances. It kind of depends on what kind of insurance you're looking for. But you can, if you look for an insurance broker, and I don't remember if the Hague International Center has any insurance brokers as part of their partners. But yeah, you don't always have to buy them from banks, not at all.
Yeah, definitely. They can also, you can also forward the questions to us.
Yeah.
Not sure if there was a name, but you can email us as well, and we can give you some more information on that. Another one, I did not catch the two different electricity forms. What are they?
Basically, in most homes, and I should have put a picture of a meter, you will have two meters in your electricity cost. One which has the Roman numeral 1 and one which has a Roman numeral 2. And it basically means that energy used from 7:01 a.m. until 10:59 p.m. will be from the higher rate of electricity. And any energy used between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. and on weekends will be the lower energy rate.
Perfect. Thank you. I think we still have time, because if that is the case, any other questions for Deborah? Because if not, in the meantime, I would like to say, because I saw a question coming in on the DigiD. No more questions for Deborah. Okay, Deborah, thank you.
Thank you.
I saw a question on for the DigiD, if there's a point in applying for it if you only, oh, I think my camera shifted. There we go. Okay, so it's part of my face. If it's only available in Dutch, but if you log in with your DigiD for instellingen settings, you can actually set it to English. So that's maybe good to know. So you can definitely use it. And also when applying for the DigiD, or yeah, for applying for the username and the login, you can, there's also an English registration page. So, and if you can't find it, you can also go to the Hague International Center.nl, search for DigiD, and then there's a direct link to the English like application page. Let's see. Is there time for a general Q&A? I'll just check with the team. Otherwise because there are more questions on tax. Yes, questions for all. Okay, let's see. For Patricia, you mentioned some allowances, such as the healthcare allowance and the childcare allowance, which are applicable depending on the level of income. Is this considering income from box 1 sources or also assets considered in box 3?
No, it's none of them. It's not regarded as taxable income. So it's an additional allowance you are entitled to. Yeah, of course, when you put it on your savings account, the allowance you get, then it's part of box 3 income. But it's not taxable income in box 1.
Okay, and there's another one. Can you file taxes retroactively?
Yes, you can. You can still file your tax return until 5 years after end of the tax year. So you can still file a tax return as from 2016. So that's still possible.
Okay, thank you. The worldwide income is for 1 year or every year?
No, it's every year. So for example, for box 3, taxation on savings and investments, each year your worldwide assets will be determined for paying tax on it. So it's every year worldwide income.
Yeah, okay. And I think this was already discussed, but it just came in. If you don't earn any income and are invited to file tax, am I still required to file?
Yeah, the answer is yes.
Yeah. Let's see. If there are any questions from before that we didn't get to. Anyone else? If you still have a question, a tax question for Deborah, please do let us know. And otherwise, we'll complete tonight's webinar. Well, I think that's, oh, there we go.
I see an important question. How do we apply for partial non-resident taxpayer status? That's an important one because you can't apply for it in your tax return. You just apply for it by not declaring the income. So that's a bit strange, but there's no box you can mark or whatever. You just do not declare the income.
Okay, perfect. I think that was the last one that came in.
Okay.
Then we'll move on. Okay, that brings us to the end of the presentation and the webinar. Please join me in thanking tonight's speakers, Patricia, Boy, and Deborah. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us. If you have any questions that remain unanswered, we will share their contact details in the chat window, so you can always ask your question directly. And thank you to our audience for joining us today. We hope that we were able to provide you with the information you were looking for. If you have any feedback, we'll share the feedback form in the chat window right now, and we'll also send it by email. If you could please complete it, that would really help us improve future webinars and events. You can also, or we recommend that you check our events page on our website, where you'll find an overview of all upcoming events. March 11th will be the first one, Welcome to The Hague. And March 23rd, there's another Connect webinar on education and childcare. If you would like to stay updated on news and events, you can register for our newsletter on the website, theHagueInternationalCenter.nl, or you can follow us on social media. We're active on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And as a last reminder, a video, because we had a lot of questions about that as well, a recording of the webinar will be available online. So once available, we'll send a link to the video by email, so you can watch the playback online. If you have any other questions, people with questions from on the municipal taxes, regional taxes, you can email us, internationalcenter@denhaag.nl. And that's it for tonight. Thank you again for joining us, and we hope to connect with you again at one of our next events.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.